On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Eric Labourdette. He is the former VP Global Cloud Ops and currently a cloud service consultant. We're going to be talking about delivering cloud transformation and efficiency. Going to be talking around some of the efficiency aspects of it, some of the offloading of CapEx to OpEx, building a 24/7 org. Try to cover as much as we can with Eric. He's got a fantastic background. Eric, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. All right. Before we start, obviously just want to kind of get to know what some of your responsibilities have been in the past, and we'll dive in from there.
Yeah, so I've been leading your R&D transformation for some time now, from your Agile to DevOps to SRE, and lately on more focused on the cloud operation. So I'm making sure that we have an efficient organization to drive the business and make it profitable in a way.
Awesome. All right. So this topic, it's I think it's going to be an interesting one, delivering cloud transformation efficiency, various, areas that we're going to touch on. We'll see how far we get. I guess when you're kind of thinking about, driving an efficient cloud organization, right? Let's say that's a goal for a lot of companies. What does that exactly mean to you? I know it means different things for different people, but based on your experience, what are you hoping to gain efficiency in?
Yep. So these days there's a big drive around going to the cloud, but it's all about your customer service. It needs to be adapted for the new mindset, I would say, and you need to focus on operational margin in a way to have a nice, efficient organization. It's key for you because it's not that easy. We need to make the differentiation on the cloud services about services that are multi-tenant and the one that are more private SaaS. Usually large organizations, bank, financial, are more focused around private SaaS. So that means they want to have dedicated environment just for them. They don't want to share that data with anyone else. So the multi-tenant solution are not always adapted for them. So driving a cloud business around private SaaS is a challenge because you have to face the scalability of it. Each customer has their own dedicated environment, and you want to make sure that it works fine, but also obviously the scaling is difficult. So it's all about getting that working correctly and making getting value to our customer in a way. So you're shifting from a software company delivering software on premise to the cloud. It's a different approach, and it's a different kind of work you're going to apply to your operation side.
Absolutely. I guess when you're kind of looking at that and you're trying to, bring more value to the customer, obviously, operational margin, we'll talk about, the financial side in a second, but how are you measuring? Like, what are the typical measures? If I'm hoping to achieve better customer service, obviously I hope there's a baseline metric, but what are some metrics that a company could use to actually measure the gain from the shift to a cloud strategy?
The best indicator that we found is NPS, the Net Promoter Score. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So we work with companies such as Qualtrics to collect data. So we send survey directly to our customer, and they provide a rating on our service. And we learn a lot about that because you can identify any kind of KPI or measurement internally, but the best measurement you can get is from the customer itself, right? So collecting those surveys, those feedback is a gold mine for us to improve and improve the rating. In the last 4 years, I improved that case by 30 points by just digging into those feedback and try to apply efficiency behind that.
Absolutely. And I guess when we're talking about cloud transformation, I mean, everything's in the cloud. It could touch a multitude of things. It could be as basic as a customer service portal. It could be, the whole platform needs to move into some kind of a cloud infrastructure. When you're trying to identify, and every company has different stages, but when you're looking at the customer side, you're trying to serve the customer. How do you prioritize? Because obviously every department has a need. It's coming to your lap, different initiatives, different projects. You have to pick and choose. How do you go about deciding? Like, obviously, I'm sure there's a steering committee, but the prioritization has to happen.
Yeah, I think for me it's all about where you get the most value out of it. A cloud is a keyword, but it's all about what you get behind that. It's about offloading your capex to opex. So it kind of useful from a financial standpoint. It's about reducing resource management. When you run a software in-house that requires some very specific skill set, as you know, these days you get the great resignation. It's difficult to find the right skill set in your enterprise. So by moving cloud, you kind of offload all the resource management aspect of it, trying to identify, hire the right person, and so on. It's about outsourcing the expertise. You're focusing on your bank. You want to focus on the banking industry. You don't want to focus on IT. You don't want to focus on software. So you outsource all the expertise in the company that is dedicated to help you out. It's about the reliability, right? You offload to experts that run your cloud services 24/7, and their main goal is to provide this reliability, this SLA, the 3 nines, the 4 nines, and the guarantees that in a way, because of their expertise about their distribution, about their architecture, they can implement on the SaaS. So there's a lot of reason why you want to go to the cloud. And last but not least, is about security and data protection. Obviously, these days, everybody is focused about that. I want to make sure it's focused, it's secured, and you save your data, right? You don't just sharing that with the world. And these days, actually, cloud company have a very efficient way of making sure your data are secure and so on. So that's kind of the key things that you make a selection about what project you want to move to the cloud first. Obviously, each company is different and have different focus, but based on the value you can get for your customer, you can pick and choose which one is more adapted for that. And last thing is about also what kind of process you're running. Something that is more standard, is more adapted to go to the cloud. That's something that is very customized. Customization doesn't fit very well with the cloud usually.
Yeah, no, and I guess that's some of the complexity is you have systems that the companies have used for years, and unraveling that to make it something that could fit the cloud could be very difficult. I guess you mentioned some of the cost savings of the benefits. Do you have an example of a time that you saw some significant software like efficiency or cost reduction?
Yeah, so how do you achieve this efficiency? So it's all about cost control and optimization. First, you need to look at your vendor, right? Making sure that you negotiate the right contract, the right savings, the right discount, and also try to consolidate. What I've seen when I took over the cloud was a lot of different vendors providing the same services for different features and elements. So trying to do some economy of scale by consolidating the same vendor. Two is about the provider you're using, AWS, Azure, Google, and so on. I mean, those providers are great in providing the infrastructure as a service, but it's very easy to use and very easy to spend money with them. So the thing is really about looking about your spending on the such platform and monitor that. Have dedicated people looking at the spending. How can you optimize your runtime using setting plans in AWS or reserve instance, all those elements that you can get. It's also about using new tools such as Cloud Health, for example, that's going to monitor and track everything across your different AWS account. And after it's to work with the operation team and R&D, try to optimize all those services or EC2 instance to make sure they are not oversized, they are the right elements you're going to pick, and so on. So third one is about the architecture itself. You need to optimize your architecture on the cloud to make sure that you get the most out of it. If you develop a new service, that is going to be multi-tenant, with container and continuous deployment, that's one thing. But a lot of situation is on private SaaS is you get a monolithic implementation, and you need to make it cloud ready in a way. So you got a lot of architecture optimization and working closely with R&D to make it work. It can be about the load balancer. Instead of using a load balancer external one, using the one from AWS like ALB and so on, that will be cheaper to run. So a lot of things that can be done, or just looking at the overall architecture of your product in terms of how many databases you run. Can you consolidate that and make it cheaper in terms of runtime, as well as number of licenses that you're going to have to buy to the vendor? And so that's kind of thing you need to look at to make sure you can have an efficient runtime. And economy of scale, like I said, but the vendor, you need to make sure you focus on standardization. Every customization you have on the cloud is going to cost you a lot of money. You need to standardize as much as you can, and the processes are here to help you out. ETL, obviously, it's a great way to optimize your standardization, your processes. But it needs to be customer driven. It needs to make sense. You need to get the feedback from the NPS I was talking about previously to make sure that your process is not overwhelming and provide a lot of overhead. It needs to be efficient and linked to your different tooling you might have. So a lot of things can be done and help you out on the process side from an implementation standpoint, but you need to have your hands-on and understanding how you can tweak and optimize those processes.
Absolutely. And I guess as you're kind of talking about processes, and we're talking about customer service, and you're looking at the NPS, obviously most your global companies have to deal with the 24/7 work. I mean, that's becoming the standard, especially if you're selling software or you're a solution provider. That's or just pretty much anyone selling anything at this time, and that's becoming, I guess, maybe easier to support via the cloud. Obviously, you have to design and deliver the right type of support for that model. From your experience, as you kind of have seen 24/7 orgs built and maintained, how does the cloud help in achieving that?
Yeah, so obviously on the cloud service aspect, you get a very high level of expectation from the customer. I mean, everybody is facing those cloud services. You want it now, and you want to work non-stop and so on. So you need to adapt to that. So you need to build a 24/7 organization. A key thing is the first level. So you need to set in place a process of escalation and how you can better serve your customer. So you need your first level of support, what we call L0, L1, with a 24/7 network operations center. You can set it up with globally distributed, or you can have in one location with shift people, right? They can cover nights, they can cover weekends, and so on. So it's based on the budget you get, the location you are, the customer you have, and so on. Or it can be a mix. It can be a mix of local people with shift and distribution across the globe to get a better coverage. So that's a key thing. And how your NOC can bring as much value as you can. Meaning by that they are going to be the first one to monitor any incident in production. And you want to make sure that your NOC is empowered to address simple issues and as fast as you can, so you can meet your SLA and so on. Next level is to escalate to your TechOps organization, but it takes a little bit more time. But you can bring experts on board to make sure you understand the issue and address that. So in terms of a team distribution, I find it always better to have a global team, in multiple locations for a lot of different reasons. First, to have a better coverage. To have what we call the follow the sun approach, right? You can have team in the US, in Europe, in Asia, to make sure that at any given time, if you get an issue, you can have someone that can address this issue from the TechOps team, during the daytime. It's always easier to have someone addressing the problem during their day shift instead of having someone called at 2 a.m. in the morning. So if you get this possibility, having a global team it is fantastic to get a better support and do this follow the sun. It also brings another element is about the risk management. And these days you've got a lot of attrition, as you know, the Great Resignation and so on. You have great skill sets across the globe. You get great engineers in Eastern Europe, in Asia, in India, and so on. And you need to leverage that, because it's always difficult as when you drive an organization to have the right skill set. And you cannot have put all your risk in one location. So having this distributed team help you out to bring this value and the correct support. And the last element, for me, is about also mixing contractors and full-time employees. With contractor, it provides a lot of flexibility that it's always more difficult to get from a full-time employees. Hiring someone takes a long time and getting on board. So having a mix of contractor dealing with different agencies that can bring your expert on board, either temporary or long-term with a staff augmentation, is great, because you get minimize your risk from the runtime standpoint. And distribution is key, but you need to also be close to your customer. So always have a local presence to make sure that you can talk to your customer regardless where they are, but a global distribution with a standard implementation.
Absolutely. I like that, that flexibility from the contractor side, bringing that expertise to kind of fill out this 24/7 follow the sun model. I guess when you were mentioning, I guess you touched on the NPS a couple of times, and you've mentioned a couple of times how valuable that is in overall, establishing. Let's say you're building out this 24/7 capability, and you're building out this team, different geographies. How do you, I guess, also go about building out that initial, survey? Like, I guess at this point you're building out a new team. You're trying to measure the customer satisfaction, how it's working for people. What aspects are you looking to test in an early stage team like this potentially?
Obviously, survey you get are quite diverse in a way. Obviously, customers are more vocal when something doesn't work than when something works, unfortunately. So when everything works, people expect that, and you don't get any feedback. But when something happens, so right away, you know what's going on. So it's really about identifying the root cause of your issue, right? And sending survey that can highlight efficiency you can bring in your process or in your runtime or in your product and so on. So we are trying to focus those questions based on that and what we want to get out of it. So it's a tricky things to do, but we always let open your section for our customer to comment and get more insight in a way.
Absolutely. And I guess, just to touch on one thing about, team distribution, the challenge, obviously, you highlighted having a team that's, working in shifts versus local presence. I guess when you're looking, at building out that type of team, and you're looking at the actual local presence, so hire somebody in different geographic locations, as you're going through that process, and let's say it's, the first time you're doing that for the company, the interview process itself has to be a little bit tricky, because obviously you're trying to engage with resources, different time zones, different, culture, different language, all these different things. What have you seen in the past help you achieve like efficiency in that interview process? Because that could take some time.
Yeah, so the technical aspect. Obviously, I don't interview people from the technical standpoint anymore, but and technical aspect can be learned in a way. So for me, it's all about people behavior. How they react to your open questions and soft skill in a way, because it's to serve the customers, to help them out. So it's someone that needs to be curious about the technique, but also what's going on and the customer. So it's all about your mindset more than the technical aspect of it, because once again, all the technical aspect, every company, every software is different. You're going to learn that over time, and you're going to get this expertise. So it's all about providing the good experience, and you need to have a coherence in a way in the team, right? People that are willing to help, people that are willing to curious to address the issue and fix it right. And that's the most difficult things to get right. So I think interview process is all about getting these feelings that people are going to get along and do the right thing.
Absolutely. I think this topic we could probably talk for hours on. I think we hit a lot of excellent points. I wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing. I know it's broad. I think you did a great job of kind of hitting some of the key points. So I like to ask guests if they had the opportunity to ask a future guest to cover a specific topic or answer a question on a future podcast episode, what you'd like to hear about.
Yeah, sure. So something we haven't got a chance to talk a lot is about the SRE team. Site reliability and engineering. It's something that we hear a lot these days. Everybody's facing a challenge to put that in place. Cloud operation is all about automation these days, DevOps and so on. And recently, we come up with a new SRE. So it's coming out of Netflix and Google, but nobody can meet those people in a way. Everybody has different challenges. So how you address your SRE challenges and what is SRE for you? Because there's a lot of interpretation of SRE and how you can implement that. I think it's a great topic to cover these days.
Absolutely. I like that a lot. And if somebody does want to reach out to you, if anything you said or just in general, based on hearing you on the podcast, what's a good way of getting a hold of you?
Sure. So you can reach me on LinkedIn on my profile, or send me an email to eric@labourdette.net, and I'm going to try to answer the best I can to any question you might have.
Awesome. Thank you for that, and I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure talking to you guys.
Absolutely. That's it for this episode. We'll be back again. Different guest, different topic. Until then, two things. One, I think Eric's topic is great, talking about SRE teams, and there's nuances to every company and a slightly different version. And I think that's the least of the challenges. So I'd love to have somebody on to talk about that. So if you know somebody or you yourself would like to talk about that, please let me know. I'd love to have you on. Secondly, if you like the podcast, share it with somebody else that might like it. That's something I always like to see. That's how we've been growing. And secondly, if you do leave a rating on the platform of your choice that you listen to this podcast on, that's how it benefits the growth of the podcast. It's kind of like a twofold thing, sharing it, the rating. So everyone who does that, I appreciate it. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.